What is up, Gacha gang? I'm Gacha J. This is your home for Gacha news, analysis, and reviews. Today we are looking at Revived Witch. It is a recent sprite-based JRPG game. It has a little bit of an open world type feel to it, though it's probably better to call it like an exploration phase to it. Mainly, I will go right out and say that this game does charm incredibly well. If you're looking for a game that does sound incredibly well, that gives you vibes, that gives you just thematics pretty well, this is definitely where you want to be looking. But today we're going to be looking at graphics, story, progression, gameplay, uniqueness, monetization, and community. As always, a 5 or higher means that it is above average. 5s are average, you know? Okay, it ain't like an American grading system where a 7 or above is passing. This is 5 or above. So if something ends above a 7, that means it is a dang good game, okay? Don't be thinking any other way. So let's hop right into graphics. This is a sprite-based game. It's not going to be that interesting to look at the majority of the time, though the actual character illustrations themselves look pretty well, and they do an okay job when it comes to the level design and pushing forward a feeling through the sprite-based. Overall, I feel like the actual amount of pixels that they put into their sprites are on the smaller side compared to other sprite-based games like Guardian Tales. It doesn't come off as that level of charm. The music really sells this game when it comes to the thematics. So it gets an above average passing grade because of how good the illustrations alone are. If the illustrations were not there and it was just based off the sprite, the game would probably be like a 3 or a 4 in that regard. They do put a lot of art forward to you, but it's just sprite based. Now, story, I have this slotted at an 8. When I was reading through, I didn't really get that bored trying to read the story. A little bit of the ice planet and how it rehashed some things was a little boring at times, but overall I was genuinely interested. I really liked when you were in the tower itself and climbing up. I wanted to know where it was going. I liked the direction the game is headed, and I'm interested in more future chapters. Though granted, it seems like they're going to be pushing out chapters relatively slowly, so that's pretty sad. Which leads us right into progression. I very much enjoyed playing this game from a progression standpoint, and I thought how long it takes you to max out a character in terms of EXP and skills and stuff like that is relatively fair. In fact, I would say it's an above average when it comes to the actual grind to max out a leveled character, but you feel like it's good enough. The only thing that you really complain about in Revived Witch is the stamina system, but they do give you free stamina through multiple ways. And if we look at the monetization later on, I think that if you're willing to pay a little bit, you can go a very long way with the monetization in this game, which helps the progression. Because I'm building my own gacha game, I do not believe in free to play purely. A game should not be 100% accessible as free to play as compared to a pay to play. It's just not a viable thing for you to get a good game out of. Sorry if you hate me for that, but that's the truth. But you don't want to feel like you're getting scammed for your money. There's a big difference between the two, okay? Gameplay itself, I have it slotted at a 7. I thought the game did okay when it came to the gameplay design choices. I thought the way that it integrates the gameplay into the game itself and the universe was a little well fitting. The pace in which the battles last is pretty well for an exploration based game. If you had a longer based battle system, the long form battles in an explorative phase would actually be kind of a downgrade in terms of the way that the game feels. So I thought the gameplay matched what the game was going for in a positive way, but it's not so intricate of a gameplay that you're really going to be outsmarting people a lot of the time. You can kind of have a lot of design decisions when it comes to the team format and what you're going for, how the skills synergize with each other. But once it comes into the actual play, it's kind of hard to outplay people. It's kind of like a stat stick type of game, or it's just an Ella is broken type of game. Speaking of Ella, let's look at uniqueness. I thought this game had a lot of really interesting character designs. I thought that the feel and the vibe and the story of the game were all very unique. I will not look at another game and think it's comparable to Revived Witch. It does a really good job of separating itself from the competition in this crowd. And with that said, it could definitely do a better job of branding because the witch itself is not even useful in the game. You don't really remember a lot of the characters' names. They're harder to say, they're harder to spell. So overall, I thought the way that it goes about branding itself as a game was a little on the poorer side. I thought the way that it markets itself was a little on the poorer side, and I thought the way that the game presents itself to you as a player when you're in it is positive. positive. It's very, very positive. So that's the reason why it's an above average game, is because the in-game uniqueness and the way that you feel, not because of what you feel when you walk away from the game and compare it to everything else. Speaking of what I talked about earlier, I think this game does a really good job of monetization. I think you can't just straight up buy your way through everything unless you're willing to shell out an absolute ton of money. But I think if you're willing to put money in, you get a lot, and I mean a lot out of it. I think for about $20, you can get a couple of things because it gives you discounts through other ways, but you can get the battle pass, you can get the growth pack, and then you can get a whole bunch of other things for free. And with that, you can get the 5 levels at a time. Every 5 levels, it gives you a paid pack of crystals that gives you a ton of rewards. So you give that $20 and you can basically do everything you want up to like level 60-ish. And at that point, that $20 is kind of gone, but you are all the way through the in-game. You probably have 1 to 3, maybe 4 characters maxed out, and you'll have the majority of the UR characters in the game. So for 20 bucks, you can go a very, very, very long way in this game, and you can have a ton of stamina. So if you're looking at it from a purely free-to-play point of view, it'll go down a little bit. And if you're looking to whale, you're gonna run out of gains after a little while for money put into it. So I don't think it's a perfect game when it comes to monetization, but I think it does strike a really good balance for monetization purposes. Now, community, I have it a 5, and honestly guys, I think if people joined this game as a secondary game, it would jump up a little bit more, but I think that the community is actually going to stagnate down slightly, just because it is a secondary game that's going to have a long content cycle. So I don't think we'll be getting chapters monthly, even though I think that it's definitely possible given the design breadth of the chapters themselves when it comes to actually getting the game ready to push out. But it kind of comes down to their team size. It's definitely possible to get a chapter out a month, and I think that's what you would need for the community to travel up past to 5. So I'm anticipating the community will actually trend down. Overall, I think Revived Witch sits at a 7.14, which puts it well above a good game. At a 7 is around the mark that I would actually recommend it to people to play. So at a 7.14, it means I definitely recommend this game for people to try out and for people to play. It is a really fun and gorgeous game. I hope you check it out, you give it a chance, and I'll talk to you next time. Peace.